Fantastic. We have a quorum. We have a very full house. Okay, so with enthusiasm and excitement, I call this June 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Somerville School Committee to order. And I have to read my little blurb. So pursuant of the Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A S 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, as well as Mayor Curtatoni's declaration of emergency dated March 15th, 2020. This meeting of the Somerville School Committee will be conducted via remote participation. We will post an audio recording, video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting from the Somerville website and local access government channels. So, Superintendent, could you call the roll, please?
Hi, Madam Chair. Mr. Green?
Here.
Moment of silence and salute to the flag.
We're still doing the roll to make sure we have a quorum.
Ms. Warner?
If this was Laura, I'm here.
No, we haven't continued because I'm still trying to see who we need to mute here.
Okay.
It was Obed. You're good to go.
Okay, great. Okay. Ms. Norman?
Here.
Dr. Ackman?
Here.
Ms. Pepsin?
Here.
Ms. Parrish?
Here.
Dr. Phillips?
Here.
President McLaughlin?
Here.
Ms. Patone?
Present.
Mayor Curtatoni? We have a quorum.
And Ms. Santiago was absolutely right. We usually start with a moment of silence and salute to the flag. And I think I'm already on summer vacation. So we will now start with a moment of silence and then a salute to the flag. And we already have the roll done. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks for rolling with that. I get very excited when we have this many guests, especially this many outstanding educators who I am both thrilled for the next phase of their life to begin and deeply sad that they will be leaving us. So we're now going to move right on to item number 2, awards and citations and recognition of service. Superintendent Skipper, would you like to kick us off here?
I would. So tonight is one of the most fun nights. Normally we have a big cake, so this is going to be virtual cake. But to celebrate all of the educators who have given their careers, their lives to the Somerville Public Schools, to our families and students, and just who have been wonderful colleagues over the years with all of our staff. So we have a full house of retirees this year who could make it. And it has become our tradition to have someone from the school, generally the principal, but sometimes it would be a director, depending on the role of the teacher or counselor, speak to what that it's going to mean to have that person no longer with us in retirement, and all that they've done at their school during their time in SPS. So I'm going to actually go in order of the schools, and I'm trying to also pay attention to make sure that people have been able to come in, so they're here. So the first one is Ms. Soto, and she is going to be speaking on behalf of Paul Barringer. So Ms. Soto, Paul, if we could have you turn your cam on. There we go.
Hi.
Hi, good evening to everyone. Thank you for having us here. Mr. Barringer has been a member of the Somerville Public Schools Music Department for the last 20 years. Early in his career, he worked at Somerville High School and arranged music for the high school chorus and jazz band. Then he was a traveling specialist and taught in the Unidos program when it was housed at the St. Polycarp's, so a long time ago. Paul believes that music is for everyone, that music unites us all and transcends generations and cultures. Paul worked tirelessly in his belief and taught so many students and teachers of the beauty that comes through music. He was always able to find a spot for every kid in school performances. We were amazed every single time at the dedication and focus he was able to get from our students. He felt strongly about teaching various cultures, and we saw that through his repertoire selection with the students. When we think of Paul, we think of his love and passion for music, but most of all, his dedication to his students. Paul is also the go-to piano accompanist, and additionally, he's a master jazz musician. His colleagues shared how they were supposed to have lunch together every day, but often Paul was not there because he was checking with a homeroom teacher about students and staying behind in the classroom to support student teachers and traveling specialists. In preparation for concerts, he often used his lunchtime to work one-to-one with students. This is a very difficult time for us to say goodbye. We were not able to celebrate properly the culmination of his career and the years of dedication at the Argenziano community and to our music program. We owe that to him. On behalf of the Argenziano students, parents, teachers, and staff, we would like to wish him the best in his retirement. Enjoy every day. You deserve it. You have worked really hard and you leave a very strong music program at the Argenziano School. Viva la música. Enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
I like,
Thank you very much.
if I could just say a quick word. My kids were in part of the All City Chorus, and all sorts of music programs. And so even though I did not know you through your Genziano, I certainly know you from all of the contributions you've made to our greater music community. And when we talk about educating the whole child, I think music is and the arts are such a key component of, no pun intended, key component, just caught that. I really want to thank you for just strengthening our community and bringing joy to our students and families.
You're most welcome. Thank
And
you.
Paul, if you would like to say something, feel free to. There's no pressure.
I would just like to say it's been my honor and my pleasure to serve the children of Somerville for 20 years. It's been an amazing journey, and I've learned an incredible amount, and it's been great being with so many wonderful colleagues and in a program, in a school system where music and the arts are valued. This has just been awesome. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I think Cheryl is.
So I would ask Principal Piccarelli to please join us, and she will be presenting on behalf of Joan Prisby.
All right, there we go. Sorry, I didn't have the camera on.
If we can
So, yeah,
get, okay, there's Joan.
there's Joan. Great. So I'd like to say that, Joan has been a dedicated teacher to Somerville for many years. I've only known Joan for 5 years here in the SMILE program at Capuano, but we do know that Joan has been, she brings with such experience to her position that the one thing I really want to say about Joan is that when any child who enters her classroom, she makes sure that they leave her classroom with all of the prerequisite skills for kindergarten, and they're ready when they leave. With that experience, she's become the go-to person for a lot of, all of the new teachers who have come through. And now she has been a mentor to many, informally, as well as the go-to person for like materials and resources and her experience. I'm sorry, I lost my space. So the other part about Joan, though, the most important part about Joan is that her colleagues describe her as a great friend, and she is there to understand and to give advice to all colleagues. She makes fun lots. She makes the experience of preschool teaching fun and the teaching part too. So her colleagues really rely on that. Fun inside of school and outside of school as well. I'm sorry, Joan, that you did not get that great traditional send-off that the Smile teachers usually give in the hallways of the school. But I do know that you're going to enjoy your retirement even without that send-off. We will miss you, and your colleagues will miss you. The entire school will miss you. We have we'll have a void. That's what I really want to say. I'm getting a little emotional, but we will have a void without you there, Joan. And I wish you the best. We all wish you the best in your retirement. That's what I have to say.
Joan, would you like to say a few words? Let's.
You button, Joan?
In my 34 years in Somerville, I have worked with amazing educators, and Somerville is the children of Somerville are very lucky to have the programs and the educators that have dedicated themselves there. So it's been a very rewarding career in Somerville.
Thank you so much. You've just, generations of students have come through, Joan. Thank you for all of your work. Virtual round of applause. Congratulations. So I'm going to actually, I'm going to skip our next recipient. I think she may be a little bit late, and I'm going to ask Principal Morales. And our first recipient from the East is Assistant Principal Laura Bonnell. Oh, Mark, we need you to turn off. There we go. We need you to turn off.
Cheryl, your camera's off.
All right, Principal Morales.
And Laura,
Camera's
you out
on. Can you see me?
there? Not yet. There.
All right, thank you.
Hello.
How
Is
about
Laura
Laura?
there?
Laura,
Yes.
can you join us? Is she?
Yes, I'm here. I should be. Can you see me, Obed?
You
Yes.
are, yes. We have a double header in your
Can you see
screen.
Maria?
Yes.
I see Maria. Hola, Maria. Good evening. Thank you so much. I'm the honor principal of East Somerville Community School, Obed Morales, and I'm proud to offer a few words for Laura Bonnell, my assistant principal for this unusual year that we've had this year. My first year at East Somerville Community School and my first year at Somerville Public Schools. I'm going to share some words from some folks, and then I'll say a few words about Laura. Felicitaciones, Laura. Gracias por todo el apoyo y sobre todo por tu dedicación a nuestros estudiantes en la comunidad de Somerville. Te vamos a extrañar, pero espero que vengas a visitarnos pronto cuando te vuelvas a la normalidad. Todo vuelva a la normalidad. Un recuerdo especial para mí son los bailes de los estudiantes de séptimo y octavo y la alegría con los comportamientos y bailes con ellos. Estoy seguro de que ellos así lo recordarán también. Todo lo mejor para ti, en jubilación con cariño. That was written by one of our teachers for Laura. You have made an incredible impact on the students, staff, families at East Somerville Community Schools. I remember your leadership during the fire and rebuild. You were unflappable, even when having to toggle between two sites. You care deeply about our students and have taken actions that have truly changed lives for the better. Your hard work and dedication has made a difference. Congratulations on your retirement. You will be missed. That's from another staff member. Hi, Ms. Bonnell. Thank you for all the work you've done for our school. I'm sorry we couldn't say goodbye in person. We will miss you so much. I hope you have a great retirement. Those are a few words that were shared by many folks that wrote to Laura as we celebrate her tremendous 28 years at East Somerville Community School. Laura has impacted thousands of students and hundreds of staff members in her career at East Somerville. A minor note, which I don't think is minor, that many people don't know, but that Laura shared with me was a year that she took of absence from Somerville a while back, and she spent it in Puerto Rico, teaching ESL to the adults at the University of Puerto Rico at Calle. Not many people know that about Laura, and it just shows how she expanded her horizon, and she wasn't afraid of challenges. Well, guess what? She didn't know this in July of 2001 that we would have the challenge of COVID reaches in March. She didn't know the challenge she would have in having to work alongside a new principal after working for 10 years as an assistant principal for Dr. Hatch, my predecessor. When we came this together, we didn't know how we were going to end up in June of 2019, having missed 1/3 of the school year. What Laura demonstrated throughout this time is her unflappable character to always put students at the center of her work. And that's what has been shared by a lot of people at East Somerville Community School and our community at large. She's embodied that kids and staff come first above all. And Laura, thank you for your 28 years of service to Somerville Public Schools. And thank you for being that strong person that you are, not only for me, but for our students and communities throughout this time, because you've experienced many trials and tribulations at our school, some that were mentioned a few minutes ago by myself and your peers. Your legacy, like I told you last week, will last for many generations. Muchas gracias. Enjoy retirement.
Yeah.
We love you.
Because you're gonna move this stuff out.
I'd like to jump in and also say to Laura that the fire, much like COVID, was unexpected, and suddenly we were in all different locations, and education, particularly in the East, had to be reinvented. I don't want to say you're all at it doing this this spring, but what you were able to do, your leadership, leading by example, keeping kids and families who were overnight in different locations and scared and uncertain about how this was going to go, and it was over several years. And I always think it's head and heart when you're able to keep a community together in the way that you did. So I know so many kids who just said that, it helped so much to have that strong leadership during that very troubling time, and again this spring. So thank you so much for all of your years of service, especially stepping up when we have to reinvent things quickly. Laura, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
First of all, I would like to say to Obed, thank you for a great year. I very much enjoyed our year together, especially up until the middle of March. I also want to say that I feel like it's been a great blessing in my life to work at the East Somerville Community School as a teacher, and it has been fabulous. I love my job of assistant principal throughout the entire time. And added extra bonus, the past few years, I had the pleasure of working with my partner and spouse, Maria, in the nurse's office. And the last 2 years, I have learned so much about kids by looking at it through the eyes of a nurse. So I want to thank her because she is somebody who always has my back. Obed, thank you. I'd like to thank the school committee. It has really been a really pleasure to be in East Somerville, and Phoenix forever.
Great. Virtual applause. Congratulations. All right.
Is that cake, Obed?
No, this is pumpkin pie. It's the closest thing to cake.
So Obed, I'm going to ask you to stay on, and I'm just checking to make sure.
Gail.
I don't see
Gail.
Gail yet.
Gail, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
And okay.
So
Great.
Gail is only joining us via audio this evening.
Okay, fantastic.
Gail Portine.
Gail 14. Gail, spelled G-A-I-L. G is for grammatically correct, gracious. A is for always kind and welcoming. I is for inclusive with all your students, an incredible person to work with. I is also for the impact you've made to all the students and staff. L is for light that you shine on every student you teach. 14, P is for passionate about her work. O is for outstanding. R is ready to drop everything to make sure her students have someone to talk to during tough days. T is for terrific. I is for imaginative. N is for night owl of the building and noteworthy member of our community. And E is everyone is included in her service to others. Gail Portine has been a valuable member of the Somerville Public School System for 32 years. That is amazing in itself. Gail and I interacted extensively since March 12th, unfortunately, because of COVID and our school closure during this time period. Gail has been gracious enough during this time, even through all the trials and tribulations that she's experienced on her own, that I will not go into detail. She has been worried about every single student in her caseload as a special ed specialist, specifically having me one day go into her office and chase around for some files and work for a student that I mailed out to her and her paraprofessional. That just shows the dedication that Gail has had for our students at the East. The words that I read that represented Gail are from her peers. These are her peers commemorating her because of her dedication, her heart throughout the years, and that's how they felt about her. We sent Gail off into retirement, healthy retirement, a well-deserved retirement. And Gail, I thank you for your grace and for your dedication and for working along with me in these last few months. Gail, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Obed. Those were very kind words. I must admit, I have been looking forward to retirement, but the closer I got, the more I realized how much I just love my work and how much I am going to miss my colleagues and how much I am going to miss the students. Thank you.
Virtual applause.
Thank you, Gail. Wishing you well.
Okay, thank you, Obed.
Thank
I'm
you
going to
so
see
much.
you tomorrow.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Thank you, Principal Morales.
Thank you. Good to see everyone and hear everyone.
If I could ask Principal Hurry. There we go. So Principal Hurry, first up is Catherine Hughes.
Great, is Kathy here?
She is.
Great.
Let's get her video.
Okay.
Yay,
Can
I
you turn
did it.
on your camera too, Kathy, please?
Sorry, we're in the process of
Yeah,
that.
we're trying. Thank you.
There we
Thank
go.
Kathy.
There you go.
You know, I think the common theme for all the educators that are retiring this year is really an incredible thank you and gratitude for helping us to build a community that's built to last. All of you have really, as when I came in 9 years ago, had already set a standard of lighting the torch of learning that was just burning. It was on fire. The high quality instruction. I had been in 3 other districts before that. I had never seen such a relentless effort to make sure that gaps never even started out front as a grade 1 teacher. I also want to thank Mrs. Hughes for keeping the torch burning. And so in the first phase is just, I like to say, and I can say it directly to her via Zoom, maybe the strongest reading educator I've ever seen and witnessed the privilege. Just the relentless efforts every day to stand by kids, nurturing, firm, positive, but with high quality instruction, push the needle. I also want to thank her too. She's had several grade 1 colleagues that she's provided incredible mentoring and support, and that is going to help us teach the next generation of educators. She is incredibly kind, passionate, and talented, and she ran a tight ship. We will miss her, and we are incredibly grateful and thank you for all your incredible talents over years. You're going to have multi-generations of impact, and thank you.
Oh, I always, well, all educators mean so much, but I think that those early educators who embrace our kids and with love, but also give them those reading skills and those ability that that foundation to move forward is so important. Thank you so much for all that you've done for so many kids over the years.
Thanks.
And once we come back physically, we can all give hugs in the normal way, you know, be able to say congratulations properly.
Thank you. This is really hard. I always cry at these things. I'm going to miss everyone, and I loved coming to school every day. And I wanted to say Debbie was trying to come on. First she said she couldn't make it, and then she texted me and can't get in. So she's the second grade teacher that is also retiring in our building. So unfortunately, she couldn't get in because she had said she didn't think she could make it. So I want to make sure that she gets recognized too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I don't know if Miss Santiago, if she can reach out to Miss Santiago, maybe we can get her in.
I couldn't get her. She texted me. I don't know whether she's going to try again. Mark, thank you for the nice words. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I might come back and sub.
Oh, absolutely.
No. If we're in a hybrid model, you're babysitting.
I will. I would love that. Thank you so much. And we all gained weight, so we don't need our cake.
Very true.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Okay.
I'm just, Miss Santiago, I'm just checking to see, is there anyone else that was able to come in from the Kennedy?
I don't.
No, so I don't see Mr. LeGrand or Miss Messina didn't sign on. I just got off the phone with Miss Hurley, Kathy, and she unfortunately is done trying with the technology, but I did try to get her in.
Okay. Thank you so much, but I just wanted to make sure they get recognized.
Oh, absolutely.
Rob and Patty are great.
For sure.
Oh,
thanks.
Thank you for including them.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I liked my little citation. It was nice. Came in the mail on Friday. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye. You well.
Bye. Thank you.
So now, Ms. Zukalski, if I could have her come on from Somerville High School. There we go. And first recipient is Etna Sweeney. So we'll ask Etna. There she is.
Rachel, you're self-muted.
See if we can help her with that. Oh, there you go.
All right. Am I on? Okay. Hi, Etna. Good to see you. Oh, all right. So Etna Sweeney most recently worked as a special education teacher in the resource room class with our students with autism and is retiring after 32 years in the district. She was only at the high school for a year or so, but had worked with many of our students with disabilities in the Somerville public schools in various settings for many years. When students and staff learned she was transferring to the high school, the announcement was met with great relief and excitement. She is such a wonderful advocate for the needs of students and always made sure that they received all the supports that they needed. Etna is a talented and caring educator, and I only wish that we could have worked together for more years. Etna, you already are greatly missed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the kind words. I enjoyed every moment working with the students and working for the students and their families. And I want to thank also all the paraprofessionals and co-teachers and staff that I worked with, because I couldn't have done my job without them, and I appreciate their support. Thank you.
Yeah. We've never met in person, but I have heard your name with such glowing from families. Often they are moved to tears. From what I've been able to garner, you teach from a place that it's dear to you, your work, and that has come through. More than one family has said to me, she's a game changer. And it's my loss that I didn't get to meet you, but you should know that your reputation is well known, and especially as we have more and more kids coming in and moving up through the grades with ASD, that your leadership and your skill and your how you set the bar for other kids coming in, it is greatly appreciated, and that is a legacy that will continue.
Well, thank you, and I wish I could have stayed on, but circumstances made that impossible. So, thank you.
Mm-hmm. We know. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Edna.
Thank you. We will miss you.
Thanks. Thank you.
And Ms. Kowski, we also have Joan Shea.
Ah, good. Hi, Miss Shea.
There she is.
There she is. Hi, Joan. All right. Joan Shea most recently worked as a special education teacher in English and study skills classes and is retiring after 30 years in the district. The picture that most resonates with me of Joan is looking into her classroom after school, well beyond when the school day ended, and seeing her working with a student side by side at a desk. It was never too late in the day for Joan to take the time needed to help a student finish a paper or get a project done. She went above and beyond to support her students. She was also an informal mentor to staff over the years. She was always willing to lend a helping hand or sympathetic ear to new staff members who were just trying to learn the ropes of special education. Joan, you are going to be greatly missed.
And by people, your current coworkers, but there is a legacy of well, they wouldn't want to be called children now. Many of them are young adults who when they were saying, oh, who's retiring this year? When I said Miss Shea, they were like, no, and they're not even currently there. You going above and beyond, that is the theme that I kept hearing again and again. Before school, after school, whatever it took, that personal touch, you really put the individual in the IEP and really scooped up some kids who were in some precarious situations and really just stood right by them and helped guide them and give them the skills that they needed to become successful on their own. So you will be dearly missed. And your smiling face in the hallway, especially on parent night, when you so graciously guide families who obviously are lost, is a public service that I don't know how we're going to replace you. We can't. So I hope whatever comes next is good for you, but you will be deeply missed.
Chair Norman.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
Mr. Lagambina.
This is Sibby
Mr.
Lagambina.
Lagambina.
Sorry to interrupt. Could I say a couple of words too?
Oh, you can, please. Let him on.
We have room for you, Sibby, if you want to turn your camera on too.
Thank
And Ms. Shea, go ahead and unmute yourself so you could respond.
I just wanted to let everyone know that, I grew up in Somerville. When I was a little kid, I played at Albion Park, and Joan was my park leader way back when, serving the youth of Somerville all the way back in the 70s. And, she's been a fantastic member of the high school staff for a long time. We all know that, but she's just one of the most special persons that I know. Caring, compassionate, honest, and just a pleasure to work with her. And I just want to say, Joan, congratulations. And you've impacted my life. I remember when I was a little kid, and I've always looked up to you. And so I just want to say thank you for all of your service.
Awesome. Joan, you must have been like 10 when you were his counselor. Would you like to say something? Can you unmute?
It's such an honor to work with the colleagues that I've worked with, to work with the families and the students. I was just watching the graduation on YouTube, and it makes me cry because so many kids accomplish so many things. And that's what the high school is, a team, and people work as a team. And I have just loved it. It's been a huge blessing, and I'm going to miss it terribly. And I so appreciate Sibby and Rachel. I so appreciate those kind words, and I'm going to miss you. Thank you.
Virtual class. Awesome. Good luck, Joan.
Thank you.
All right, we have Ms. Gosselin, Principal Gosselin.
I'm here.
There you are. So we have Charlene O'Neill.
Yes. Hey, Charlene. So I am honored to be here to celebrate Charlene's 35 years of service. So in her 35 years, she has brought so much joy, love, and learning to all of her students. And she has a very special gift for working with fourth graders. When we think of Charlene, what we think of the most is her excitement and her passion about getting students to love reading. She works tirelessly to find books that are just right for students to engage them. And she gets so excited when she gets that right book and the kids really get into the reading. And she loves to share what her kids are learning, what they're reading, what they're talking about. And it's amazing just to see the kids really engage at that level. She's also a valued team member. She's a dear friend and a supportive colleague to her team and beyond. And her colleagues at our staff meeting last week just had amazing things to say about her, to wish her farewell. We will miss all of your energy and your caring, your warmth, and your passion. I'm grateful that I've had 3 years to work with you, a small time, and all the time that you've spent with children, but I'm really appreciative. I've learned so much from you. Personally, I will miss all of our early morning conversations. Charlene has a long commute, so she would always come in super early to avoid the traffic. So we got a chance to chat early in the morning. And I will also miss all your advice on getting a dog. Dogs are one of her passions, and she loves to share about her dog. And I benefited from all of that when we got our dog last year. So I want to thank you for that. We're saddened that we couldn't give you a proper send-off this year because of the closure. And we know how sad you are not to be able to close out the year with your students. But always remember that you will have a special place in our Wildcat family, and you will always be a Wildcat. And we miss you. We will miss you, and we wish you the best. And we hope you come back and visit us as soon as you can. So thank you.
Thank you. I thoroughly have enjoyed teaching at the Winter Hill. I was blessed to be in the 4th grade from the day I stepped in to the day I left. And people joke that I wasn't promoted, but that's okay. I didn't want to be. And I worked with the best people ever. If I needed help or if I wanted an idea for something, I knew I could get it from within. So thank you, and thank you for the beautiful citation. I opened it and went, I'm framing this. This is gorgeous. So thank you, and I really feel honored and blessed to have taught there. I grew up in the city, and it's always my home, even if I don't live in it anymore. But thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
The city and the Somerville Public Schools will always be your home. You are part of us. We wish you well.
Hey, come back and sub, please, Charlene. Come back and sub.
Oh, baby.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Awesome. And Principal Stewart.
And Mrs. Macrocanis, please. Vicki.
Hi, Vicki.
Hi, Kathleen. Hi, Carrie. Hi, Mary.
So tonight I have the honor of recognizing Vicki Macrocanis for her 35 years of service to the students and families of Somerville. I've only known her for the last 5, and she's retiring from the position of the 6th grade ELA humanities teacher at the West Somerville Neighborhood School. There's more than one family who has told me that they chose West Somerville for their child in 6th grade because of the welcome that they got when they visited the school on the open house tour days and were welcomed into Vicki's classroom. And she opened the floor to any questions that anyone had, and she answered questions that parents had and concerns. Many families have said, Mrs. Macrocanis is what made me pick the West for 6th grade. She has given so much to her students, pushing them to do close reads better and better every time. Her CNN 10 quizzes engaging kids in current events and conversations about everything that is happening in the society around us. Right to the end with remote learning, although that's, I'm sure, not how you expected to spend your final months as a teacher. You got right on board with figuring out how to do it and how to do it well. And I've heard from many families that the conversations that their kids were able to have with the racial violence and situation that's going on in the country with you over Zoom really made a difference in the end of the school year. And that's not surprising because Vicki is the kind of person who's always learning. She's always trying new things. I remember when I came to the West, I really wanted to bring Nature's Classroom back. And I was a little nervous about broaching it with teachers. And when I brought it up with Vicki, she said, yeah, I want to go for 3 nights. I'd like to go for a whole week. And that kind of enthusiasm really for anything that benefits kids in our school is something that she just has in spades. She's been a leader on the school council, a leader on the instructional leadership team. She's been a formal and an informal mentor to so many teachers, and she will be sorely, sorely missed. We were not able to celebrate you the way that we wanted to, but we will. And we know that you're going to be just around the corner, and we hope you'll come back. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you for that. So I just want to say that, you know, although professionally it said 35, when I went to the MTA, they were like, you worked for 37 years, I have there. But honestly, I've been at it for 38 years since I graduated from college. I subbed, and you know, I'm a life resident of Somerville, and my mother was the music teacher for many years. My sister Sophia taught. We're a family of educators, and my mother always taught us to give back to the community what it gave you. So for the last 14 years, I have been at the West Somerville Neighborhood School, and what is beautiful about being at that school, it was my childhood school, the Cutler School, the site where the Cutler was on. And I have met so many wonderful children and families. When I announced that I was retiring, I actually put it on Facebook. Kids came from out of the woodwork. I'm getting email on my school account. I'm getting private messages from kids who I taught many years ago who are now parents and have children. And I think that the biggest reward for me being a teacher in Somerville is that a lot of the kids that I taught are now friends of mine in their adult life. And I am proud to say that I am a life resident. I bought my family home 5 years ago, and I am immersed in the city. My son went through the Somerville Public Schools. I mean, there's a lot of generations from my family. My mother went through Somerville Public Schools, my mother-in-law, my siblings, and my son. And, you know, who knows what the future has to hold there. But this was a tough decision. I could have taught for another 2 to 5 years easily. It's in my heart. I love it. I used to bring home my work on the weekends, and when my husband retired, he used to say, "What are you doing?" And I said, "This is what I do. I correct, you know, all those close reads where I don't get interrupted, and it's, you know, it was quiet, but he got a chance to see what I, you know, go through in the trenches." I have to say that Kathleen, I've worked with her for 5 years. I love her. She's a wonderful principal. She's a principal that works with you. She rolls up her sleeves. She's not afraid to, you know, be called on something. She takes a moment. She thinks about it and makes things good. And I loved working with her for that. And honestly, I'm going to miss her. But like she said, I am around the corner. And I love all the parents that I've met, the children. I see them around in the city. I am Somerville. Somerville is me. I don't know. I love this city. I'm very proud of it. And not an easy decision, but here we are. Next step. Thank you so much, everyone.
I can't let this go, right? So when you were talking about your family, and all I could think was James. I first met Vicki at the rink when James was a senior and Dylan was a freshman, and it was a tough year. I think 1 win the whole year, and I want to say getting to know you first through James, who was such a quiet leader and carried himself so well, and was, especially for the younger ones, You did well as a teacher. You've done well as a parent. Your son has meant a lot to our family. And I also had the good fortune of tutoring several students in Vicky's class. And so I would see her in the hallway and be in her classroom. It is head and heart with her. The kids can get a hug. They can get a fist bump. There is that direct connection when they come in and out. They know they are cared for. I've also seen you have a new teaching partner and to be a mentor to Mr. Whitney and to really be a team. It
Great
goes
partner.
far.
It's even hard leaving him. We've been a great team. He's the right fit. It's been a wonderful, wonderful collaboration.
Well, as you retire, I don't know if I'll see you and Chris walking over the Tufts Hill more often.
You
Or we
will.
often see each other at 7:30 in the morning with masks. We'll identify each other. But I just, Vicki, you and your family has meant a lot to me and my family over the years, and to many, many, many kids and many families throughout Somerville. So a deep, deep thank you.
I thank you, Carrie. And also, Mary, when you came to the school system, I believe you were the first year my son was graduating high school, 2016. So we loved you. From your interview, we just felt that you were the fit, the great fit, and you have been a wonderful, wonderful superintendent. And it's great to see all these women in, powerful positions. So, kudos to all of you. And again, I'm around the corner. If I get bored, I will sub.
Listen, I got my phone right here. Trust me, I got the list. Call Vicky, call Joan. I got it.
Yeah.
It's being recorded.
It's okay. It's quite all right. But I've enjoyed working with all of you. It's been quite a ride. I have to just say that I don't know, it leaked out a little early. A parent came up to me during one of the games in the gym and she said, "Are you leaving?" And I was caught off guard. She goes, "You can't leave. You have to have my other child." And I said, "Oh, I don't know yet." I said, "I'm not really sure." So I try to keep it under wraps for as long as I could, But here we are, and in a pandemic.
Listen, you go out in style here, But we will meet again for sure. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I don't think your love with the Somerville Public Schools has ended yet. So I think we'll see.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
So we actually have Watson Michelle, who was a crisis counselor at Full Circle Next Wave. He had full intention of joining us, but his youngest daughter actually was married in Atlanta. So he could not join us, but he asked me to read a statement to the city of Somerville, Somerville Public Schools, my colleagues, and my friends. I say thank you. I value the opportunity that was given to me to serve the people of Somerville, both clinically and administratively, for the past 23 years. My utmost desire was to continue my career in this district until the age of retirement. I never expected that my time here would end so abruptly. It is with deep regret that I inform you that the head injuries of which I currently suffer from have drastically affected my cognitive abilities and make it impossible for me to perform my duties at work. Clinically, I've had the privilege to work with such a dynamic staff at Next Wave and Full Circle. My colleagues are such supportive, devoted, and well-qualified individuals who have dedicated their lives to the education and nurturing of students. They also find individualized support and comfort within their specialized milieu to achieve the utmost success that is not possible elsewhere. Administratively, the district has collaborated with me on many occasions as I reach for higher heights. I had the opportunity to work with diverse organizations such as the Somerville Mental Health, the AIDS Committee at the Somerville Hospital, the Former Haitian Coalition, and many others. While working toward my PhD, the district supported my goals and made it possible for me to complete my principal internship while still working full-time. I was proud to be the first Haitian American administrator of the district because the district was most instrumental in my administrative accomplishments. My 2 years as an administrator at the Healy School has elevated my understanding of the challenges of running a school. Seeing my face displayed in front of the library on Broadway and being selected as one of the major influences in East Somerville are some of the tokens given to me by the city of Somerville. Somerville was the ideal city for me to serve, learn, and grow. I value the opportunity to work with the dedicated members of the Art Council of Somerville. I truly enjoyed every moment that I worked with children with disabilities and from multicultural backgrounds. This is an experience I hope to never forget. I genuinely thank the school committee and the central office for believing in me and supporting me throughout our 23 years of partnership. Change is only an advantage if you are prepared for it. Thank you, Watson Michelle. You know, Chair Norman, I counted.
Can I just say a quick thing about Mr. Michelle before we, I knew Watson, I actually didn't know him, and he came to the Healy. He was a pinch hitter and he jumped right in. And the first time I met him, he gave me a hug, and that's how he always was. He has deep connections, broad connections. The kids that he knows, he remembers. We would run into him. I would see him with kids that he hadn't taught in 5, 6, 7, or 8 years. He knew everyone's name. He knew their mom. He knew to ask. He really cared for the whole child in a way that was deep and an important connection, and also a leader in how both in his rise through the system, but also it's how he led his life. I don't mean to sound like he's passed away, because he will continue to do. He's one of the most vivacious people I've ever met. So we miss him.
We do, and we will. And you know, one of the things that I will always remember about Watson is that he would regularly be called to Haiti whenever there was a crisis, be it hurricane or sickness. But he would be called in to help manage the crisis teams there, and so that was really his vacations. So beyond Somerville, Watson has made a difference, and I'm sure will continue to. So we will miss him. You know, just for perspective, if we add all of the years of service of all of the educators who have retired this year, it's over 450 years.
Wow.
You know, when I think about the impact 450 years of just stellar teaching, counseling, food service, music, art, all have had on our Somerville children and families, it's pretty significant. So we wish all those educators the very best. And hopefully in the fall or the winter, whenever we're able to properly come together, we will, be able to celebrate our educators in a more personal way.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the educators. Years of service, head and heart, each and every one of you. As a parent, on behalf of the entire school committee, we thank you and we wish you well.
Yeah, Norman, I also just wanted to, while we're on the retirements, I just wanted to, from the personnel report, ensure that we celebrate Patricia Messina, because she was not announced at the last one, who has been a Sikh paraprofessional at the Kennedy for over 13 years. So just in celebration of her, she could not be here tonight, but I did want to make sure that we read her name because she was not read yet in the formal session.
Thank you so much for that addition. We will move on. We do not have our student representatives. They will be joining us again in the fall. And I'm going to take things out of order. I'm going to go right to public comment because one of my favorite things is to have students join us, and we have students joining us tonight. And before they can, if they want to start turning on their cameras, but I first need to follow policy and read my little blurb. So welcome and thank you to those who have signed up for public comment. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to present the material. Remarks should be respectful, professional, and addressed through the chair. If a speaker persists in improper remarks, the chair may terminate the individual's right to continue. Public comment is not a discussion, debate, or a dialogue between residents and the committee. Members of the committee will not reply to public comment in the course of the meeting, though individual members may follow up and items from the public comment may be taken up in future meetings. The school committee will not hear personal personal complaints of school personnel, nor against any member of the school community in public session. Individuals may address topics on the agenda or items within the school committee's scope of responsibility, such as the district budget, goals, policies, or the role of the superintendent. And the public is encouraged to submit comments in writing for the inclusion of the public record. And our fantastic students tonight sent their comments in to me this afternoon. We will make sure that it gets to all of the members of the school committee, and it'll be part of the public record. And so tonight we have from the Kennedy School, I'm not sure who is going to, Kayla Yee, Celine, I'm not sure, Manon, I don't know if you'll be able to join us, and Ariana Diaz. If any of you are there, if you could unmute yourself, and if you have a camera, if you want to turn that on so we can, oh, actually you can't turn it on. Never mind that. If you can.
They can talk. Are you guys unmuted? Celine, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So if you could give us your name and your.
My name is Celine.
Go ahead.
My name is Celine Mannion, and Kayla Yee and I want to speak with you about raising awareness for racial equality. We are a group of rising 7th grade students of color from the Kennedy School who want to spread the word about racism, equality, and diversity around Somerville. We want to educate people of all ages and encourage them to learn more about these topics. This is important because everyone deserves to be treated equally, regardless of race and background.
Yeah.
We have to create ways that
Can you hold on for one moment? You're starting to fade in and out. Is there, can you, I don't know whether, can you try again?
Can you hear me?
We can. There's a little bit of an echo coming in.
Celine, you're all set to continue. There was somebody else who was unmuted who had background noise. And Kayla, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself again so we could hear you, then we'll be able to hear both of you guys.
Thank you, Ms. Cynthia.
Celine's talking. Sorry, Celine's talking first.
Okay.
Okay, great. You guys can take it away.
Now?
We can.
Good evening. My name is Celine Mannion, and my classmate Kayla Yee and I want to speak with you about raising awareness for racial equality. We are a group of rising 7th grade students of color from the Kennedy School who want to spread the word about racism, equality, and diversity around Somerville. We want to educate people of all ages and encourage them to learn more about these topics. This is important because everyone deserves to be treated equally regardless of their race and background. We have worked together to create a list of ways that we can spread awareness of this important topic in our schools. We will discuss our ideas with you. 1. Have whole school or whole district peaceful protest with students and staff to demand change in Somerville and demonstrate our commitment to anti-racism. Idea 2. Create social justice clubs in all schools to spread awareness about racism and equality. Idea 3. Have a zero tolerance policy for racism for students and staff. Idea 4. Create equitable discipline policies to ensure that teachers and administrators are not punishing students of color unfairly.
Idea 5. Hire more teachers of color who will serve as role models, especially for students of color in every school to help all students feel accepted, included, and safe. Right now, there's a serious disproportionate number of Black to white teachers in the whole district. Idea 6. Teach all students about racism and how to handle racism. Younger students ages K through 3rd should also learn about racism to help them understand these topics. Students can create skits to describe what to do if they see or experience racism. Idea 7. Have speeches and assemblies about racism and diversity in all schools given by guest speakers, students, and parents. Idea 8. Create and hang out posters around schools and other locations in Somerville to spread messages about racism and promote equality. Idea 9. Hire a social justice educator that will travel to different schools and lead instruction around diversity, equity, and racism. This can be modeled after the health teachers model.
Idea 10. Survey all students regularly to gather their experiences about racism in schools and use survey responses to make changes in our schools. Idea 11, create buddies with older and younger children in K through 8 schools to have conversations about racism and equality.
We believe that these policies and ideas will create schools that are equitable and fair for students of color in Somerville. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the thank you really goes to our students. We love, love, love having them at the school committee. It is the most important voice that we hear. And while I won't comment on the content, I will certainly you present yourself so well, spoken and written. So I commend you and thank you so much for taking the time on a summer night to come join us and share your important ideas.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. I had sent an email to both, I think to all three of you, but I know Dr. Jessica Boston Davis is setting up a meeting and we'd love to hear more about these ideas. I think there's some great ones that we can try for next year that will make a big difference. And just really, you know, salute and are proud of you that, you know, you're coming out, you're using your voice and you're being creative and constructive and you're sharing some great ideas with us. So thank you very much, all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will make sure that all school committee members get their bullet points, their letter. So well spoken. Love having students. So no one else was signed up for public comment. So we will now jump back to approval of minutes, item number 4. There are 3 sets of minutes. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
And is that Mr. Green?
Indeed.
Okay, is there a second?
Laura Patone.
Thank you. There is a motion by Mr. Green, seconded by Ms. Patone. And Mr. Green, can you clarify, are you making a motion to accept all 3 sets of minutes of March 9th, April 6th, and April 27th?
I am indeed.
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Green, seconded by Ms. Patone. Is there any discussion? Can we, in this remote setting, get a roll call vote to approve the minutes, please?
Yes, through you, Chair. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Norman?
Yes.
Dr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Ms. Krepshin?
Yes.
Ms. Barish?
Yes.
Dr. Phillips?
Yes.
President McLaughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Patone?
Yes.
Mayor Curtatone? Motion carries.
Thank you so much. The next item is item number 6, report of the superintendent. Superintendent Skipper?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to ask Assistant Superintendent Maza to just give a brief update. Several of the school committee members and you know, we've received inquiries from parents, understandably wanting to know what is the process that we're using as we begin our planning and continue our planning for next year for entry in September. Mr. Maza is going to share a bit about some of the process that we're using. We are eagerly awaiting the guidance from the state this week sometime to be able to see what the State Health Commission is recommending and what DESE is recommending. And Assistant Superintendent Maza will talk a little bit about how that will dovetail with some of the process that we have. I think, you know, we're going into this wanting our students back. We want them back physically as much as possible. And so we're really hoping that we're able, with the guidance and with working with our consultant group and working with our sectional teams and our staff, that we are able to develop a plan that is going to be able to happen as much as possible. This has been such an unusual year on so many, and I know all of us would love to have all of the information right now, especially our staff. I do think at this point for us to be the best prepared, we need to do what we've been doing all year, which is to take the information and look at it thoroughly and look at it through the survey data of staff and students and families, and be able to come up with the best plan possible as we go into the summer and we do some negotiation with our various unions to ensure that we have a solid plan for the first day of school. So there'll be more to come. There'll be updates throughout the summer, but we thought tonight that it would be helpful to have Mr. Mazza just give you a sense of what's on the docket within July. Mr. Mazza?
Sure. Thank you, Superintendent Skipper, through you, Madam Chair. So one of the big things that we are talking about with our process is around the planning of what this might look like at the district level, at the classroom level, from a social emotional standpoint, from a health and safety standpoint, from a food service standpoint, because you have to really take into consideration all of the different aspects of schooling as you think about what it may look like in the fall. So there will be a district team that will plan around district requirements, accommodations, what schools might look like with restructuring, if we have to restructure anything. But probably one of the most important pieces is what happens at the classroom level. And so what we are going to be doing and what we have been doing is we're creating cross-sectional teams at different grade spans, you know, pre-K, K, and 1 is a grade span, 2 through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. So we have 4 different grade spans. But within these teams, you have principals, assistant principals, you have teachers, paraprofessionals, counselors, parents, and at the older grades, we have students, because student voice is so important because they play a central role, you know, at all grade levels, obviously, but student voice as we get into the middle school level and high school level, we really want them on our committees. And so the cross-sectional teams will be discussing what the classroom structure would look like, what the instruction looks like as we do start to get back. Now, we also have to keep in mind that, you know, we may have a hybrid situation where we have partial remote, partial in face-to-face instruction, but we also could be fully remote again at some point. So, you know, for us, it's around thinking creatively, what does instruction look like when we get back? From the social emotional standpoint, that team will be made up of counselors. The director of student service will be on that team. There'll be city health and mental health workers on the team as well, teachers. But looking at social emotional health from a student standpoint, also from an adult standpoint, because we can't forget about the adults, and also from a family standpoint. You know, we are going to be working with a consultant with the city to look at best practices around safety and what it looks like to reopen schools. And I think it's important to note that a lot of what we're doing is in conjunction with the city, and it has to be in conjunction with the city. You know, we have been looking at what has been happening in other states and other countries as they reopen. We've had teachers from Germany and France talking to our principals and cabinet about what the reopening looked like in their various countries, because they were vastly different, and then how they decided to reopen. You know, so for us, again, as superintendent said, a lot of it depends around the timing from the state, from DESE, and what they give us for guidance. And she also, you know, mentioned that any change in working conditions that happens, and there will be changes, things have to be negotiated with all the unions that, you know, we have in Somerville. So, you know, that is also a big piece. For us, you know, July will be a busy month. We need to get plans in place, and they need to coexist, and they need to be cohesive, you know, and I really feel strongly that we have the best educators, we have the best thinkers, we have the best minds to make a solid plan for what, you know, education might look like in the fall. But again, we do have some unknowns. We're not sure yet, you know, what that will look like. However, we are going to start that planning, and July will be an extremely busy month for us.
I think the other thing to know is that we have a full slate of professional development that's being lined up for July, and that will also include some opportunities for parents. You know, one of the things that we heard from parents is, you know, wanting to understand the remote platforms more, how to be able to use them more effectively with their students, depending on the age span. how to be able to guide their students, more familiarity with the curriculum. Were we in a situation of being remote or partial remote? So we will be definitely including families as part of training opportunities, as well as staff. There's several big buckets that we will orient around. One of them is to continue our equity work for sure, and anti-bias work. But another is around transition and trauma, so that as students are coming back in and families, and they've experienced, because of COVID and because of the isolation, anxiety or levels of stress or worse trauma in terms of things like grief and sickness, that there will be an appropriate sort of line of delineation of what teachers can expect and work with, and then what needs to be available for the counselors. There will also be curriculum teams working on the grade spans to be able to identify kind of those critical skills that we want to be able to reinforce, both as students return in their transition and we baseline, and then as students go forward into the school year so that they continue learning. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of work in July on so many different levels. We want to be able to get the information out to parents as soon as possible for their planning. So we're really looking forward to getting the guidance sometime this week and beginning that critical work, which is really what will determine things like the classes, the schedule, and what options are there. To just let school committee and the audience know, I know I've spoken about this before, but there's just so many levels of complexity that we have to think through and think through well in order to ensure the health and safety of the students, but also to ensure the continuation of their education. So everything from transportation of how students are getting back and forth, to the entry processes of the building, to where students eat and how that process is managed, to the actual sanitation pieces of washing hands, if a student is sick, masks or face coverings, age appropriateness to all of that, or if a student has sensory issues or disability, how to manage that process, to the after school programming and what that could look like, what drop off and pickup look like for parents, how do parents engage in the buildings, do they come in, is there a more formal process, which there likely will be. So there's just lots of layers, both on the operational side and on the academic side, that you want to make sure you're managing both at the same time. Because when you make an academic decision, it always has an operational consequence. So you want to make sure the operations are able to support what you're trying to achieve academically. So this is the work. The team's very committed to it. Now that the school year is over, I think people are taking a breath for a moment, doing a bit of reflection, and then we will be going, full speed ahead to this next part of the planning. And we're looking forward to doing it in consultation with the city. As Assistant Superintendent Mazza said, we in the city coexist in all functions relative to the buildings, transportation, policies. So we need to make sure that we're working together with the city closely. And we welcome the opportunity to learn some best practice. There are consultants in the field right now that are working across state lines, they're working across district lines. And so, we each have counterparts, organizations like Director Trevisoni is working with the urban superintendents, Director Davila is working with the ELL directors around the state. I work with the urban superintendents, with Mr. Mazza. So we all use our counterparts in those networks to be able to get information back to our groups, to our cabinet principals and staffs. So there'll be more to come to update, but that's just a glimpse of what we're looking for in terms of the process and the complexity of the process.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Ms. Krupchen, you had a question?
I do. Thank you for that detailed presentation. Through the chair to Mr. Mazza, I have two quick questions. One, sure. How have you / will you pick which parents and students are in on these conversations? And also, have school nurses been involved in any of these conversations? Thank you.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair. So yes, the parents and the students will look at recommendations from principals that are actually, one of the things that I wanted to do and I think is important is principals that are on the committees, that are on the teams, know their parents. And so they should have parents representing their schools on those same teams. So it'll be it won't be an election. but it'll be a selection process through the principals and through the assistant principals and the other staff members that are on the teams. And then I didn't hear the second question.
School nurses.
School nurses.
Oh, so the school, yes, absolutely. School nurses will be one of the big pieces around health and safety. And school nurses, along with the city, I'm assuming Doug Kress, and also, having custodians around the health and safety, because there are so many different processes that they, have to undertake on a given day anyway. But now with the, increase in cleaning and sanitation, they need to be actively involved in this. Just like secretaries will be involved with the grade span teams at the classroom level, because they need to be part of the process as well.
Food service. I mean, this is really one of those all staff in many ways, all community, because it really cuts across everyone. And, we're really looking to ensure that we're getting as much, we're getting a diversity of voice. And so this also goes to the surveying, knowing that not everyone could be on a focus group or a cross-sectional group. This allows us to be able to triangulate sort of the information that's coming up through the surveys, the information that's coming up from what we hear from principals relative to staff, and then certainly, what we're able to do through the cross-sectional teams.
Mr. Green, you have a question?
Thank you. Actually, it's a follow-up, and Superintendent Skipper touched on it, but I am a bit concerned when you say that, you'll be picking parents and stuff through the principals because principals know their parents. Because, especially for an issue like this, it's the families that may have not had the opportunity to really develop those close ties with their teachers and their administration. They're going to struggle the hardest with whatever we do in the fall. And I want to make sure that those voices are heard, so that we are making sure that people who don't have the kinds of bandwidth we expect from the parents who know their principals, their voices are part of this process because they're on the front lines.
For sure. And, I will go through LPAC, CPAC. I mean, we'll use some of the parent groups as well. I think just to set just realistic, expectation, the groups aren't infinite. So there's, a parent or two on each of the groups. So in sum total, there's probably 10 parents, just like there's probably 20, teachers. So because we need to be able to do the groups, get the feedback, and then quickly operationalize. I mean, at this point, the guidelines are so delayed, that we're now we're going into July, right? We're going to get them this week, sometime later this week. So, we don't have, we need to make an expedient process, but one that certainly is getting diversity of voice. And I think hopefully also the surveys were another way that could happen. If we had time to run focus groups, we certainly could, but I don't know, given the bandwidth right now of staff, the short timing, that we would hear that much different. But we are going to go look through the surveys, and I know that one thing that Ms. Avant is looking for is if there isn't representation from particular groups, then we said we would follow up and try to do some focus groups. So for instance, for our English language learner families, our immigrant families, if we don't see a solid representation, within the surveys, that would be a group that we've already said we want to commit to do a focus group for. But I appreciate the question. I know Mr. Mazza does too, because we are thinking of making sure we have broad representation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Baton?
Thank you, Ms. Norman, through the chair to the superintendent and Mr. Mazza. First of all, thank you for taking the time to give us this update. Having an idea of what is in your mind and the work that's already been doing. You guys are so busy doing the work that taking this pause and sharing it with community is incredibly important. There's also tons of thanks for the survey. I did get some feedback, and also in my experience at looking at the survey, that there was kind of a perspective that was more focused on younger students around childcare versus middle grade and older students around supervision. That is something that I just want to give you a little context for, and the feedback. I wouldn't imagine you're doing new surveys, but to make sure that perspective of families that have older students, although they don't need babysitters, they don't need somebody sitting next to their kid, middle grades and older kids, having idle time and not having any level of supervision is really challenging. And I know families really struggled with that. So just wanted to throw that out. And I appreciate just commenting on the request from Andre that you guys are going to look at the population of people you are hearing from and following up. So with the underrepresented groups. So thank you for that.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you would like to, either of you would like to add to this topic? I mean, it's.
No, I think, we will continue. We will not be running the updates as often, on the 3 times a week basis, but we will be running updates during the summer. We're going to give people a couple of weeks break, and then we'll kick back in again for that. We are also running a full summer school in the sense of remote. When I checked with Director Trevisoni, there is about 190 students registered right now for IEP service remote. I know that we're doing a reading program one-on-one, which I know Mr. Harrell was trying to get about 150 kids that were in that. And then our ELLs, we're focusing on levels 1 and 2, and we're doing a small group and one-to-one instruction. I know that there's healthy numbers there, somewhere around 80 is what Director Davila is striving for. So, the summer school starts right in the beginning of July. So this really is a very quick time frame with a lot to do. But we appreciate the community's feedback. We want to make the best decisions. We won't be able to make everybody happy fully, but we are going to do our best to take all of the feedback and have that be part of informing our decisions, again, along the lines of the guidelines of health and safety. So more to come, and we will again resume the updates within July for the community. I also just, I wanted to say that, this has been a year that, one could look back and focus just on the difficulties of it. And that's not my person. I look at it and I see just tremendous hope when it comes to our educators and our families and our students and how everyone came together throughout this pandemic. We can honestly say this is a historic moment. It's a once in a lifetime. And none of us fully knew what we were going into on March 11th. But the way our community has pulled together to support one another, be it everything from the basic needs of food to the emotional, social, emotional supports, to parents struggling to help become teachers for their kids, and teachers trying to be parents to their students and teachers to their students. It's really been remarkable to see everybody giving 110%. So I'm extremely thankful for our community in Somerville. I can't think of a better place to be. And I think on days when it's really hard, that's what I think about, is all of the hope that our community has. And I think, with all of the the racial incidences that have happened over the last several weeks, those being brought to the surface, but knowing that just the tip of the iceberg, I think the outpouring from the Somerville community, from our educators and from our students to care for our students, to reach out and to let them know that we want this district to be an anti-racial district, racist district, and that we will do whatever's in our power to make that happen. And that goes from caring for not only our students and families of color, but also our staff of color, and doing whatever it takes in terms of learning and being open and aware of ourselves and our roles and our identity and what that means in those roles. I think it's been powerful on a number of levels in our district. So again, we come to the end of a long year, but I think it's a foundational year to build on. And I'm looking forward to being able to build on that next year in ways that I would never have imagined come March 11th. So, and I thank school committee for its support and for its constant feedback from constituents. If ever the constituents wonder if school committee does, such an incredible job giving feedback, it does. Small things, big things. School committee is constantly reaching out to us because okay or good is never enough. We strive to be great. And so I thank you guys for your partnership in that.
I want to echo everything the superintendent said about how much people have come together in both small and large moments of humanity throughout this, and it's the educational and Mr. Mazza, thank you for the inventory of all of those things that as a district you need to think about, which is often invisible to parents, or because they're right there, you know, their kids are right in front of them, so that we're not thinking about custodians. So to get that complete complex understanding of the many variables. The other one that wasn't named was the pandemic itself, right? That's the big one that will be driving a lot of this. But also to echo what the superintendent said, we've done some foundational work. Before we went out, we were doing some important work on student enrollment and weighted student average. How do we fund our schools in ways that isn't just equity as platitudes, but really to put it into very practical day-to-day implementation. And I applaud the students for coming tonight. I don't want anyone to think that whatever is brought up in the spring is somehow erased and we start from zero. I think this summer, not only is it going to be a planning summer and a learning summer for staff, with I hope some days off somewhere in there, because next year it will be a long year, but it's also a learning one. And I speak on behalf of the school committee. This is not a group that will just be kicking back and forgetting about things. This is a group that will be learning as much as they can about how to become an anti-racist district, and what does that mean both in terms of the classroom policy and our role in the community. So thank you. Thank you for that presentation description, Mr. Mazza. It's helpful to be reminded of the many moving parts in this complex situation. Superintendent Skipper, did you have any personnel report, or is there more to your district report?
We celebrated Patricia Messina in her retirement, and so I read that earlier. The other thing I would entertain or ask the chair to entertain would be to take out of order, because we have Director Gorski on the line, and I do know he's busy preparing our budget presentation for tomorrow evening. But yes. I would ask if there's any questions relative to the student accident insurance, which is new business D.
I would very happy to address that. If there are other issues that it would be helpful to have Director Gorski present for, please chime in, just so our members and the public know. Hi, Fran. Yesterday we had gotten notice that the City Council wanted us to present tonight, but we have our own meeting, and so the school budget will be presented tomorrow night. I'm not sure if we have a time, Mr. Gorski or Superintendent Skipper.
The meeting starts at 6. We haven't been given an exact time for the school department. Yeah.
Okay. And when we have more information, obviously we will share that. So I'm going to skip over to new business item D, the student accident report, student accident insurance, excuse me. Is there a motion? And if we can get a motion a second, then we can have some quick discussion about that. Mr. Green?
I move to accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding student accident insurance for the summer.
This is Emily, second.
Thank you, Mr. Green, and for the motion, and Dr. Ackman for the second. Mr. Gorski, can you speak quickly or speak to it, please? Especially we have 3 new members who haven't been through this before.
Sure. Sorry, my little guy is in the background, so distracted for a second. The work from home.
We are all multitasking, yes.
Absolutely. So this accident insurance with Morin Insurance Agency, this is a long-standing relationship between the district and this particular company. This is an exempt an agreement similar to the classroom photography contract would be. This is a company that we've been very happy with. The premium that is on the handout has not gone up for years. The catastrophic part of this would cover students on field trips, and then there's the interscholastic sports piece, which for our students participating in athletics. So.
Thank you. Does anyone, Ms. Barish, you have a question?
Hi, thanks. I'm just trying to get my my camera on here. Sorry. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to ask, I think Fran said, or through you, Madam Chair, I believe, Fran, that you said that these premiums haven't gone up in years, and I just wondered if you have any reason to believe that that will be different this year because of COVID-19 and various other things happening, or if you have any idea yet if that'll change. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Through the chair, my understanding is that the rates will be the same this year as they've been the previous couple of years, so that we're not going to see a rate increase for the district for school year 2021.
Thank you.
So this is Catherine. May I just add that the form on the handout is the one for next year. We actually got it today, and so those are the rates for next year.
Oh, okay.
Which matched last year and the year prior.
Thank you for that clarification. Are there any other questions about this? Hearing none, I will ask for a roll call vote on the student accident insurance.
Certainly, Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Norman,
Yes.
Dr. Ackman,
Yes.
Ms. Kretchen,
Yes.
Ms. Darish,
Yes.
Dr. Phillips,
Yes.
President McLaughlin,
Yes.
Ms. Patone,
Yes.
and Mayor Curtatone. Motion carries.
Thank you. While we have you here, can I get a motion on the authorization for summer months, please? Will we still have Mr. Gorski with us? That would be item number E under new business, authorization for summer months, which basically is an action we need to take to make sure that the district can continue to pay bills during the summer.
I move to authorize the superintendent to act on the school committee's behalf to pay bills on school department accounts for which commitments have been made by bid or purchase order before the close of schools. Said bills be ratified by the committee at the first meeting in September. To expend from FY 2021 salaries account funds for paying of salaries of personnel under all federal grants beginning in September. C, to expend from the FY 21 salaries account funds for payment of salaries personnel as detailed in the FY 20 budget. To use salaries account and school operations account funds to pay encumbrances and salaries for summer programs. To authorize and reauthorize school department revolving accounts. To accept all monies received by the school committee in connection with the conduct of said revolving accounts according to the purposes of the program or programs for which receipts in each account are derived. And to accept all state and federal grant monies awarded to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Department of Early Education, and caring to authorize the establishment of separate grant accounts that may be expended by the school committee without further appropriation for the purposes designated in each grant proposal.
This is Emily, second.
Thank you, Mr. Green, for that. And the second from Dr. Ackman. Are there any questions or discussion while we have Finance Director Gorski with us? Hearing none, can I get a roll call vote for this, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Norman,
Yes.
Ackman,
Yes.
Gretchen,
Yes.
Ms. Barish,
Yes.
Dr. Phillips,
Yes.
President McLaughlin,
Yes.
Ms. Patone,
Yes.
Mayor Curtatone. Motion passes.
Thank you. And while we're just on the, let's just take item F, please. Acceptance of the FY 2021 grants. Is there a motion?
I move to accept all federal entitlement and continuation grants and all state continuation grants awarded to Somerville Public Schools for FY21, and to authorize the establishment of separate grant accounts that may be expended by the school committee without further appropriation for the purposes designated in each grant proposal.
Second, Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Green, for the motion, and seconded by Dr. Ackman. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Certainly, Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Norman,
Yes.
Dr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Ms. Krebshin,
Yes.
Ms. Barish,
Yes.
Dr. Phillips,
Yes.
President McLaughlin,
Yes.
Ms. Fatone,
Yes.
Mayor Curtatone, motion carries.
Thank you. And thank you, Director Gorski, for joining us tonight when you will have another long night tomorrow night.
Through you, Madam Chair?
Yes.
We do see that is the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program as well.
We certainly can. Let's do
I
that.
move to accept the superintendent's recommendation to participate in the National School Lunch Program for the 2020-2021 school year, as in previous years.
This is Emily. Second.
There is again a motion by Mr. Green, seconded by Dr. Ackman. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can we also get a roll call vote for the participation in the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program?
Certainly. Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Norman,
Yes.
Ms. Ackerman,
Yes.
Ms. Krebshin,
Yes.
Ms. Barish,
Yes.
Dr. Phillips,
Yes.
President McLaughlin,
Yes.
Ms. Fatone,
Yes.
Mayor Curtatone, motion carries.
Fantastic. I think that covers everything that we might need Director Gorski for. So thank you. We look forward to supporting you in your presentation tomorrow night.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Superintendent.
You well. So Superintendent, no more for your district report.
That concludes my district report, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to item number 7, report of subcommittees. And I believe, Mr. Green, you have a triple header here.
I do indeed. And first of all, I want to apologize to my colleagues for not getting these to Ms. Santiago in time for her to put them in your packets. My apologies. It's been a week. That it has. But I will try to get through these as quickly as possible. So I'll read all 3 of them and then do one motion to approve them all, so we can keep this going.
Thank you.
All right. So starting with the June 9th meeting, in attendance were A. Green, I. Krebshin, E. Ackman, S. Phillips, L. Patone, E. Barris, and C. Norman. Also in attendance were Superintendent Skipper, Assistant Superintendent Mazza, Finance Director Gorski, Special Education Director Travisone. The meeting was called to order at 6:01 p.m. The first order of business were the May bill rolls. After motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Ms. Patone, the May bill rolls were passed unanimously. We then moved on to the presentation of the superintendent's budget. In order to give the community and the committee time to deliberate and review the budget under the abnormal timeline COVID has given us, the superintendent released her budget 8 days before the public hearing. After explaining the procedure and the timeline going forward, the superintendent began a presentation. Highlights are an overall 1.96% increase, allowing for collective bargaining pay increases. Additionally, the staffing changes include the creation of 3 Dean of Student positions at Somerville High School, replacing the security monitors, which have been a concern raised by students in at least one incident this school year. Additionally, after years of hearing from PTAs as well as groups like the Welcome Project and CPAC, and more recently LPAC, there's a proposal to make the SFLC family liaisons full-time. Enrollment and changing special ed needs offset the cost, with the final budget calling for a reduction of just over 7 FTEs. Additionally, the superintendent is calling for an investment to begin a relationship with becoming a man at the high school with an eye towards bringing them fully into the high school and healing. Questions were raised about extra COVID costs. Things like PPE and COVID infrastructure will be essentially purchased by the city. The superintendent's current belief is that all known COVID expenses, as of right now, can be covered between the school and City CARES Act money, as well as money made available from FEMA and MEMA. Questions were also raised about special education staffing levels, particularly at the Kennedy. Director Travisone explained that they expect far fewer students in SEEK that even with one fewer classroom teacher, the student-to-teacher ratio should be lower than this year, while reassuring us that if that changed, they would come back to revisit staffing. After explaining the process going forward again and with no further questions, Dr. Phillips moved and Ms. Norman seconded a motion to adjourn that passed unanimously. The meeting adjourned at 7:41 p.m. That brings us to June 17th. Sorry, was it? Sorry, having minor technical difficulty. Here we go, sorry. In attendance were A. Green, A. Krepchen, E. Ackman, S. Phillips, L. Patone, E. Barish, and C. Norman. Also in attendance, Superintendent Skipper, Assistant Superintendent Mazza, Finance Director Gorski, Special Education Director Trevasone, Early Education Director Q, HR Director McDonald, Director Bertaldo, Director Davella, and Chief of Staff Curley. Meeting was called to order at 6:00 p.m. The hearing opened with the chair explaining how the ground rules of the public hearing would go. Attendees would be given 3 minutes to talk and would be encouraged not to repeat prior speakers. School community was there to listen, not respond. If there were factual questions, the superintendent may address them. With that, the superintendent and her team presented her proposed FY11 budget in order to provide the community time to deliberate while allowing us to present a budget to the city in a timely manner. The actual budget numbers have been released on Tuesday, June 9th. Since then, a tentative agreement with the STA Paraprofessionals Unit had been announced. The budget already accounted for this agreement, but now could be announced. After the superintendent's report, the public hearing began. 16 people spoke, the majority of whom were STA members. The most common requests were for more staff in the coming year, particularly more guidance counselors and more classroom educators. There were also questions, particularly about the responsive classroom program at Cesiano, which is still in the budget, and participants also expressed gratitude to the committee for avoiding layoffs and resolving the para contract. Near universal concern was raised over whether or not the superintendent's budget adequately covered for COVID costs. Despite the city's commitment to cover expenses like PPE and the superintendent's stated commitment to request funds if needed, commenters still expressed great concern about the need for extraordinary investments to handle the uncertainty of the fall and the entire 2020-2021 academic school year. All attendees having spoken, the hearing adjourned at 8:47 p.m. And the next day, June 18th, we met again. In attendance that night were A. Green, I. Krepchen, E. Ackman, S. Phillips, L. Patone, E. Barish, C. Norman, President McLaughlin, and Mayor Curtatone. Also in attendance, Superintendent Skipper, Assistant Superintendent Mazza, Vice Director Gorski. Meeting was called to order at 6 p.m. This meeting opened with the chair explaining how the ground rules of the meeting would go. First, members would be free to ask informational questions. Then the process of amending the superintendent's budget would begin. Carrie Norman moved and Laura Patone seconded a motion to add $130,000 to the budget to expand the Becoming a Man program to the Healy. This motion passed unanimously. Ms. Patone then introduced a resolution, seconded by Dr. Ackman, confirming the committee's expectations of the superintendent to report back on any additional budget needs, the committee's intentions to request supplemental budgets if asked, and our expectations of our partners in government to meet those requests. In addition to friendly amendments over awarding from Superintendent Skipper and Chair Green, the committee also voted on two amendments in resolution from Dr. Phillips. The first amendment, seconded by Ms. Krepchen, added a whereas clause stating Mayor Curtatone's expectation to file their requested supplemental budget with the City Council. This amendment passed unanimously. The second amendment, also seconded by Ms. Krepchen, explicitly stated the need for a public hearing as part of the supplemental budget process. There was general agreement that this wasn't legally necessary, as a public hearing is part of the legal process anyway. This amendment nonetheless passed 8-1 with Dr. Ackman as a dissenting vote. The resolution then passed unanimously. Ms. Patel motioned and Ms. Norman seconded a motion to add a district-wide social worker position to the budget at $74,000. This motion passed unanimously. Chair Green then moved with Ms. Norman seconded that an amendment budget of $77,929,431 be adopted for the 2021 fiscal year. This motion passed unanimously. Meeting adjourned at 7:26 p.m. I move to accept the financial facilities reports of June 9th, June 17th, and June 18th, 2020.
This is Emily, second.
Sorry, I have loud kids and I keep muting them. There's a motion by Mr. Green, seconded by Dr. Ackman, to accept these three finance and facility reports, including the public, the hearing on the public hearing on this next year's budget. Okay. Are there any discussion? Can we get a roll call vote, please?
I think you're muted, Ms. Superintendent.
All right. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Norman?
Yes.
Dr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Ms. Kretchen?
Yes.
Ms. Barish?
Yes.
Dr. Phillips?
Yes.
President McLaughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Patone?
Yes.
Mayor Curtatone? Motion carries.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Mr. Green, for assuring us through a complex budget development process this year. And I look forward to the presentation tomorrow night at City Council. Fantastic. So next item is item number 8, unfinished business, resolution in support of education funding in the COVID era. And I will confess, I don't remember where we left it or what we needed to do. Was it the first reading, and are we doing a second reading and a possible vote tonight? If one of my colleagues could help refresh my memory, that would be.
Yes.
Okay. So if anyone in the public is curious, if you hit the handouts, the resolution is there. I believe it's, who submitted the resolution, and do they want to speak to it right now? Was that you, Ms. Krupchen? I can't remember.
That was me?
That was you, Mr. Green.
Yes. Basically, it's a very nice bookend to the other resolutions we passed. We passed a resolution calling on the federal government to step up and do their part to fully fund education. We've now passed a resolution calling on our colleagues in city governments to be ready to step up if called. But the basic piece of this is the state, right? We just found out Friday that the state is going to be doing a 1-month budget that literally no one had seen as of this morning. It is possible we will not see a state budget for months yet. The city's budget assumes a 20% cut in state aid. There are reasons to believe that might be actually optimistic. And while Somerville was able to pass a budget that didn't call for layoffs, many cities and towns in the Commonwealth were not so lucky. According to the Mass Teachers Association, 61 districts have announced layoffs for the upcoming school year, at a time when, as the people of Somerville made it abundantly clear to us during our process, we should be trying to invest in more education, not less. So the only way that's going to happen in many communities, a number of our gateway communities and our most vulnerable communities are going to get most of their funding from the state. And the only way they're going to make the investments they need to do is if the state steps up. And so this resolution calls on the state to fully fund education and to support progressive taxation in order to make that possible.
Thank you for that comprehensive summation of it. We did the first reading. This is the second reading. So there was, Mr. Green, did you make a motion? We made a motion. I forget who seconded it last time.
I don't remember that.
Okay, so let's just make sure we have all our ducks lined up. Can I get a motion?
Yes, I move to accept the resolution in support of COVID. What I call it, resolution in support of education funding in the COVID-19 era.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Eleanor, second.
Thank you for that. So there
and
is.
I have a friendly amendment because I noticed when I was reading it just now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bullet at the bottom that should be struck in. It was a typo when I was drafting this and putting my notes together.
Thank you. So there is a motion by Mr. Green, seconded by Ms. Barish. Dr. Phillips, do you have a friendly amendment you would like to add?
Mr. Green already made it. Thank you.
I like this teamwork. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Superintendent, can we get a roll call vote?
Certainly. Excuse me. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Norman?
Yes.
Dr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Ms. Kretchen?
Yes.
Ms. Barish?
Yes.
Dr. Phillips?
Yes.
President McLaughlin,
Sure.
Ms. Patel,
Yes.
Mayor Curtatone. Motion carries.
Fantastic. We are now back to new business. The first item is item A, report out of school committee office hours. I think the way I'm going to do it is start in Ward 1 and go work our way up. If someone has said, if you were at the same one and someone has already reported out, please only add things that weren't said. So Dr. Ackman, would you like to kick it off with the most recent
If
round
I'm
of
being
office
honest,
hours?
I don't have my notes ready. So if someone else does, I'm happy to cede my time and then find my notes. If no one else does, then if you'll give me a minute, then I'm happy to.
Sure. Did someone who did the same office hours with Dr. Ackman want to jump in? Okay. Ward 2, Ms. Krepchen?
Okay, I have, oh, sorry, let me find them here. I have mine from Sunday, May 31st, which I did with Andre. So I'll read this one and then I'll read my one from the other one that I also did with Andre. So we had about 10 participants, a few who were staff, a few parents, and Rami Bridge, president of the SDA. Concerns included 2 different parents asking about curriculum in terms of distance learning and making sure it is consistent across the district. One had strong concerns. After mentioning she had already talked to the principal at her child's school, I followed up with her after the fact and suggested she talk to Mr. Mazza. There was a long conversation about the budget and what it means, that we are trying to keep all of our jobs. There was a push that the school committee should be advocating the city not to cut our budget going forward. Lots of concerns about the social emotional needs of our students in the fall. A parent asked about the possibility of using some of the city's resources to help with kids. Her example was city librarians. Could they be doing more to help school-age kids? There was definitely a general feeling of angst about not knowing what is happening in the fall. When will focus groups be happening? Who will be involved? The last part of the discussion was around racism and what the district should be doing. We had 2 educators of color, and it was educational for me to hear about their experiences, ideas, concerns, etc. They definitely feel a burden, both emotional and time-wise, about often being the only non-white person in the room and having to explain race, advocate for policies, and advise students of color. So now I will find my other office hours. Sorry. Maybe you want to skip next and come back to me.
That would be great. 3, Dr. Phillips?
Hello. Hi, this is Catherine. If I can just share with you all that all your reports that you shared are on the Google Drive. So for those who can't find their reports on their own devices, check the Google Drive.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to second that. Thanks. Thank you, Ms. Santiago. So these are notes from my office hours with Carrie Normand from 9 to 10:30 on Friday, May 29th, 2020. There were approximately 15 people in attendance. People came and went. All but 2 were district employees, mostly teachers. The most commonly expressed theme was the importance of ensuring next year's budget meets student and family needs and supports our paraprofessionals. Attendees encourage us to advocate for more resources at the city and state level and to go to bat for our teachers. They encourage us to consider next year's budget through an equity lens and to do a better job engaging the community in budget discussions. In addition to this overarching theme, teachers advocated for continued funding for music and arts and expressed fears about potential layoffs. They spoke about feeling more like counselor educators than teachers and the extensive case management they were doing to ensure their students, particularly newcomer ELL students, stayed engaged and families got the resources they needed. They talked about feeling under-supported in terms of curriculum and the difficulties of remote learning. Talking through tears, one well-respected teacher talked about the difficulty of watching her 7th graders disengage and begged us to return in person in the fall. They talked about the extensive social and emotional needs they expected students would return to school with in the fall. They spoke about the important work paraprofessionals were doing in their schools and classrooms and encouraged the school committee to ensure paraprofessionals were placed in 1st grade classrooms. Would you like me to go on to my next 2 or? take a break?
Yes, please.
This office hours is from 6/3/20, facilitated by me and Andre Green. It was attended by approximately 15 people, again, mostly teachers, and STA President Bridge. Themes included students' needs have grown enormously and are expected to be larger next year. A level service budget won't be enough to meet those needs. One ELL teacher spoke eloquently about the important work she and her colleagues were doing at the high school to stay in touch with all their students, help them with connectivity and platform issues, and keep engaging in school while working and dealing with coronavirus, either themselves or someone in their family. There was lots of concern over potential cuts to music and arts programming and strong support for Elsie Stemma in particular. A group of Somerville High School alumni and recent graduates joined to talk about policing in the schools. They had a lot of questions about the STEPS and Cadet program and advocated for eliminating these programs entirely. Somerville High School alumni also spoke to difficulties with the guidance department. In their experience, guidance counselors were not responsive to their needs and had low expectations of students' potential for success at selective institutions and were not supportive enough. Finally, my office hours on 6/14, those I don't think were attended by Andre Green, but they were attended by 7 people, including STA Vice President Megan Brady and President Rami Bridge. Themes were, it was not clear to participants how education is workable with the proposed staffing plan and in-person limits to date of 10 students. 2 educators in attendance spoke of how they might do this with 111 and 50 kids each. Our Genziano parents were concerned about the loss of responsive classroom line item and more generally about what that might mean for the continuance of behavior charts in early elementary. There was a lot of desire among parents to volunteer to help make next year more doable, leading reading groups, math groups, as homework helpers, etc. And finally, there was a desire for increased counseling support. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
For the record, folks, I was at that one. I do remember that.
Thanks.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Mr. Green.
Ms. Crutchen, do you have more you want to add now?
I do. I didn't realize my camera was still on. Sorry about that. Okay, I will cover June 12th, and this one was with Andre, Emily, and myself. In attendance, we had 2 liaisons who were also parents, Rami Bridge and Megan from the STA, a teacher from the East, and 3 parents. There were several parents who wanted to talk about the uncertainty of the fall, how hard not knowing is, what is the timeline from the district, can there be more transparency on what the decision-making process looks like. The survey that went out, there were a lot of concerns that it wasn't written well, that it didn't ask the right questions, that each link was unique, so people couldn't share it, that the survey was changed after it went out, making the answers not valid. Also wondering how the district will be using the answers to inform decisions. We heard from a liaison that was excited about the full-time position, but deeply concerned about the 12-month position. She really felt that the job is so intense that you need a break. For her, in an ideal world, the job would be 10 months like teachers with the option for stipended extra work over the summer. We heard more concerns about class sizes. In some of the schools, the classes have 25 students. So even if you split the class in 2, there would be too many with the current DESE guidelines. And then, well, how does that work? There was a request for more social emotional support in the budget in the form of an extra counselor or 2 at each school. Emily pointed out that we might be able to get more social work support through the Health and Human Services on the city side. A parent brought up IEPs and how we'll address those come the fall if there's more remote learning, and also how to address new learning issues that have surfaced during this time. If there is more remote learning, we need to figure out a way to make sure that there's consistency across classes in each grade. One idea is to have more collaboration across the district in each grade level so that the burden isn't always on one teacher alone, but some shared curriculum, etc. Someone brought up air quality, air conditioning at the Brown if and when that building opens. And finally, Rami brought up his idea that the city will actually have a 3% revenue increase, which Andre confirmed is not true. So he says we need to be pushing the city for more money and hiring more teachers if any of the models we are talking about for the fall are going to work. And that is it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Green, were you at other sessions that you wanted to add to, or were you?
So there is one more with notes from Ms. Barish that are extensive and wonderful. I feel like I don't want to steal her thunder, so I'll let her present them.
Thank you for that. Ms. Batone, Ward 5.
Thank you. I have two that I'm going to read for, and then Ms. Barish will share the other one. She put the notes together for that. Let's see. I'm going to read just a summary of the March 28th. This was one of the first ones. I think it was a Thursday. I co-hosted with Alana Krepchen, and there were 6 people in attendance. And in summary, there were concerns about class size that were shared, especially variability from school to school. And it was questions how it is equitable, though acknowledged that we have school choice in our district, so there's not as much control over that. Wanted to know more about the enrollment study that we had been talking about this year. There was so strong support for the school committee reconsidering the offer that was withdrawn post-COVID-19 pandemic. At that time, the current offer had been withdrawn, and we had submitted a 0 salary increase offer with the other previously agreed upon item. There was emphasis on the critical nature of paras, especially now, and support for paying them more. Most of the time was spent discussing the challenges for parents in supporting remote learning and the worries of parents and educators about next year. Particularly, there was a desire for better communication between staff and parents, as well as desire for community voice in decision-making for next year. Lastly, a couple of participants advocated for the city to spend more money on schools, not less, because they advocated that education has been so adversely affected by the pandemic, as opposed to other city functions. And then I have, I co-hosted with Carrie Norman as well as with CPAC on, it was June 16th, I apologize. It was the evening before the hearing. And we had an excellent turnout. I had counted 12 parents, 5 parents/staff, and 6 staff members. And I will try to hit the high points. I can find the ones that we haven't talked about before. Parents, there weren't all parents with kids with special needs, but that was the majority in the group. And there was concern about the disparities in the students' experience from teacher to teacher and from student to student. They acknowledged that some of the staff was going the extra mile and greatly appreciated, especially with organizing reminders and live sessions, but that wasn't the case for all students. Particularly, there was an emphasis on executive functioning challenges for all students, but especially those with special needs, and how they were magnified. Who will be providing that support in the district, particularly in the context of communication with parents? Some of the students weren't able to manage it themselves, and some parents got more or less communication depending on who the teacher was, and wanting to really have more consistency in terms of the expectations of what kind of information parents will receive. There was also frustration with multiple technology platforms. So, you know, Google Classroom, I don't remember the names of all of them, but the kids were expected to log into multiple places, Zoom, Khan Academy, etc. As well as for older students, their parents were really frustrated about really not knowing what was going on and didn't really have a common place for them to go. And then the parents would only find out after the fact that there were lots of missed work and missed learning. And in some cases that was students not doing the work, but in many cases it was just students not knowing what they were supposed to do and not having the executive function skills to do that well. Some of the parents with students with special needs praised the one-on-one or small group services via phone or video. It really made a huge difference to those families and those students. But also some said they didn't receive much live instruction. Others received no contact from educators until several weeks had passed and assignments were missing. So there was just a lot of variability, and there was both praise and frustration. One parent talked specifically about a student who socialization is a huge part of their IEP goals, and they're concerned about having to get pullouts when they finally do get to go in person, if they do, and was really advocating for some of the services, OT and P, to be delivered out of school time, or at least during the remote learning time, or whatever is, so it wouldn't interrupt with the social needs of the student, and that's what they're really working on in their plan. Let's see.
Can I jump in a little bit on the CPAC one?
Sure, please.
The other, so we had so many people, we broke off into 2 groups. Laura had one, I had the other. There was a lot of concern about families who were either starting or in the middle of evaluation process, how will that be completed? There was questions about how families with students on 504s were being contacted. What was that like? A number of families, parents, some of them were very practical questions for our out-of-district students. How will there be social distancing on the buses and transportation? When will we know that? How will that be communicated? And how will families with students in out-of-district placements know what the social distancing policies will be from that school? So that I think the overall theme is a question of how much knowledge and uncertainty and some of the services that can't be delivered remotely. I think Laura touched on sometimes you'll have in a normal setting, in person, you might have a speech come into the classroom. If it needs to be one-on-one, that families wanted not to lose the instructional time, and so to have more time devoted specifically to speech. And a number of families asked about with older students who are moving on towards transition, will there be compensatory services if their student ages out and wasn't able to do that? And so much of this is still unknown.
I have a couple more items. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. I'll try to be quick. And thank you for emphasizing those families who had students who were in the evaluation process. That was an important one. I think I talked offline to the superintendent about challenges with tablets and some families thinking for the kids that were on the older end of the spectrum, whether or not, towards second grade, whether or not they were going to consider Chromebooks. There were families that really are asking the district to prioritize students with special needs in the fall and how to deliver on their IEPs in the fall. There were certainly people in that conversation who felt like the answer was, we don't know how to do this, we can't do this, and we've got to figure out as a district, obviously, and I know there's a commitment and passion from the educators to try to do and execute on the expectations for IEPs. We talked about student evaluations, and just briefly about staff, trauma for students, and making sure that there was enough social support, social workers and counselors. There was a concern about wanting more staff. That's come up before. One thing that came up, which I don't think I've heard before, is with apparently at least one staff member had challenges with accessing multilingual services and felt like they were in very high demand, as well as supporting parents and students with limited technology experience. So they felt like there was a big delay for, I think it was particularly in that situation, it was translations. And then there was also staff requesting additional resources, paper, access to printers, and hopefully that'll be something that we can do because there were staff that were printing things out and giving them to kids. So as well as considering maybe having some resources for home offices such as whiteboards. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barish, and I would encourage you, if there are things that have been mentioned already, to highlight the things that haven't been mentioned already from previous report outs.
Sure, I will do my best to do that. Can you hear me all right?
Yes,
I know it's
absolutely.
Okay, great, thanks. So the first office hours that I will report on were held jointly with Carrie Normand on May 30th. There were 11 people in the session, 4 current district parents, 7 are SPS educators or staff, 1 is a former.
Oh, Eleanor, you froze up. Oh, shoot. Eleanor.
Carrie, do you want me to go? Well, oh.
Ms. Barish, are you able to?
Oh, do you not hear me?
Now we hear you.
Okay, sorry. So there were concerns expressed about layoffs in other districts. There was a suggestion made that a possible approach to re-engaging students who may be slipping through the cracks of remote learning would be to pair them with district faculty they already know in a sort of mentoring arrangement.
The former SPS student wanted to highlight the importance of a racially diverse staff and noted the important role of paraprofessionals in helping students feel safe, heard, and cared for. As in other office hours, there was concern about the latest developments in the paraprofessional negotiations. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep it brief here. One teacher spoke to her concern about access to technology for teachers, expressing that some teachers only have a school Chromebook at home, which limits their options for engagement with students. Also wondered about how teachers who might not feel safe returning to the classroom might be accommodated. Let's see. As in other sessions, people spoke to how the difficulty of coping with the uncertainty of the moment. Someone spoke about the anxiety that students will be feeling about separation from their parents. Oh, have I lost you guys?
We can hear you. Your
have I lost you?
Camera's frozen, but we can hear you. We can still hear you.
Okay, all right. Sorry. Sorry. Okay, great. Okay, super. And finally, there were questions about how data would be collected about the student experience during the closure. And some Somerville public school employees spoke about how hard they and their colleagues have been working, tracking engagement, doing wellness checks and such. And so that was the essentials from those that office hour. The next one was from June 11th, and that was held with in conjunction with the Welcome Project. Andre Green, Alana Krepshin, and I were all there from school committee, as well as Kenya Alfaro from the Welcome Project. There were also 2 Welcome Project volunteers, 2 parent leaders, 1 current Somerville Public Schools parent, and 1 interpreter. Andre opened the meeting with a brief review of the budget timeline and mentioned that he was excited about the family liaison position being made full-time and the security monitors being replaced with deans of students. The first speaker shared that there's an urgent need for Chromebooks for immigrant families so that every child has one to use. They said that some families hadn't been able to use the devices and that they need multilingual tech support. Similarly, a parent said that her daughter didn't receive the device immediately and then that it didn't work and that they weren't able to connect with the teacher and didn't know what to do, that better technology was needed. Andre informed the group that SPS is looking into how to extend internet service for those who have been accessing free internet during the closure, and pointed out that Chromebooks would not be taken back from families over the summer. Then there was a pretty long conversation about how English classes would continue in the fall and whether they would. There was a lot of support for English classes. One person who volunteers as an English, to help with the English classes, said that they're invaluable for learning, but also for parents to connect to each other and to form a community and to be connected to the broader community. One speaker said that English class was important for her, enabling her to help her children with their homework. As a parent leader, the parents in the classes were able to relate to her. I asked what the schedule of the English classes is like and how many people participate. Kenya said that classes meet twice a week in 2 different sessions, 2 different locations, that there were 76 students in the fall, 82 in the spring, that there's always a waiting list of 50 to 70 people, that it's an incredible source of emotional and social support, not just to learn English. Let's see. A question was raised about what would happen if class sizes were smaller, and Kenya suggested that professional development support for parent leaders would be helpful. Also thought that some Welcome Project folks could help with additional classes if there was enough space and money. One of the Welcome Project volunteers said that despite the vicious recent anti-immigration actions, students are still coming because of the relationships that they have made and the trust that they have in the program. Again, a call for more funding of translation and interpretation services, more staff who are able to speak more languages would be helpful. Alana asked if English classes are being offered virtually. Kenny said that they are, but that they haven't been running long enough to have assessed how successful those are. Support for parent leaders was brought up. They've been helping community members with PEBT and applying for Somerville Cares Fund, among other things. Kenya said that she's been in constant contact with the SFLC and that the liaisons have really rallied. There was concern about how SPS would connect with families around the plan and guidelines for the fall, more communication concerns there. And Alana pointed out that liaisons would be working through the summer. And Andre gave a shout out to the teachers and district staff for all their hard work. Sorry that's so long. I have one more. In this one I think I got better at summarizing, so bear with me.
Okay. And if you can hit only the points that you haven't reported out on,
yes,
that would be helpful.
I will do my best. All right, so this was June 13th with Laura Patone. 15 people participated, teachers, other employees, and parents. Let's see. The concerns of safety of students who are at home with limited supervision. I'm not sure that was touched on yet. Let's see. There's a concern from parents of older students expressing frustration that the district seemed to lower the bar and that students thought that they could get by with minimal effort. They wanted more support in keeping their kids engaged, and one wondered how this period would impact their children's competitiveness in the college application process. Several parents asked how they could be helpful as volunteers, whether they could help lead learning groups, assist teachers with rote learning facilitation, and folks stressed the importance of having established relationships with educators and motivating factors for keeping students engaged. Let's see. And there was concern raised about the changes made to the liaison position. I think that someone already spoke to that, you know, allowing for some time off in the summer. And finally, just questions about how things would move forward in the fall. But again, lots of questions without any answers yet. And I guess that's just about it. Thank you. Thanks for being patient with me.
Absolutely. Dr. Ackerman, you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, mine will be fairly short because most of the stuff has been touched on. The office hours I did with Ms. Barish on May 28th from 8 a.m. There were 8 people in attendance, including 7 Somerville residents and 3 Somerville teachers. Someone spoke about the district investing in a more active online platform, and the example that was given was something called Nearpod, which I hadn't heard of. Another parent spoke about the disappointment and feeling like the bar had been set low for online learning. There was talk about sort of the safety and security of students and family, or students and teachers, and health and safety. And then the last person to speak expressed a concern that if in-person school is canceled again for some part of the 2020-2021 academic year, that synchronous online classes should have more small group components to them, with the goal of simulating small group classroom instruction. Everything else has been touched on.
Thank you for those additions. Over the last I participated in 3 or 4 different sessions. The only things that I would add is I heard multiple times, could there be especially at the high school level, instead of office hours, but an assigned time to meet, because if it appeared to be optional, many students opted out. And again, the frustration with the number of platforms and if not always knowing if if what was appearing online of all the assignments was actually up to date. So there was often parents were having some confusion whether their student really hadn't handed in that much work or whether there was a delay in teachers posting it. And so it became more difficult to track where their student actually was. Ms. Fatone, you wanted to add a comment to wrap this up?
Yes. At first, I want to quickly thank the CPAC leadership, Michelle Lippens, Lucy DiTilio, and Leonore Hillstrom for co-hosting with you and I, kind of on short notice because we're all learning. We're trying to do a better job of office hours, and I just wanted to call out thanks to them for doing that, as well as I wanted to thank Lucy also for offering to do Portuguese interpretation, which we didn't need to have on that call, but we did have it, as well as the SFLC stepping up and offering Spanish interpretation. So as we go through this process, the online in some ways makes all of this a little bit easier, even though the flow of conversation is not maybe as natural as we'd like it to be. And I wanted just to thank quickly Alana Krepchin and Sarah Phillips for both participating in some of the organizing for these office hours, as well as my colleagues for their enthusiasm and their time in participating. That's it. Thank you.
I would also say, in addition to our community partners, the Welcome Project also helped facilitate it. And was there a meeting with Teen Empowerment too? I mean, there's all these ways of trying to reach more components of our community. I would say with CPAC, both in some of they had a training, and I think the office hours, more people were able to participate because of remote. So it is not all bad, although it's steep learning curve. Oh, the Teen Empowerment one got postponed. Thank you for sharing, updating me, Ms. Phillips. We had met with them about a month before, so that was helpful. Fantastic. Okay, new business. The planning and process for returning for school, was that what Mr. Assistant Superintendent already covered? So we are going to knock that off. Also under new business in the packet, there are, for informational purpose for tonight, there is both the MOU between the district and the police. There's 2 models of them, like people throughout the country. We are all starting to really re-examine our policies and our procedures to see if this is, are we doing enough? Are there ways to change things up to be, to continue our work towards becoming an anti-racist district? Dr. Phillips actually introduced both of these. She gave us both of these resources. Dr. Phillips, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to, do you want me to speak and then make a motion, or make a motion and then speak? Sorry.
You can make a motion, and then if there's a second, we can have discussion.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I move to refer the district's memorandum of understanding with the police department to the rules committee and ask the committee to review it in light of the Attorney General's model MOU in order to identify any potential revisions we'd like to bring back to the full body for consideration.
It's Alana. I'll second.
So there's a motion by Dr. Phillips, seconded by Ms. Krepchin. Any discussion?
Point of parliamentary procedure?
Yes.
That doesn't need to be deliberated unless you as chair aren't going to forward it to a committee.
Thank you so much for that. That is absolutely correct. It is the end of a very long day. Ms. Krepchin and I and the superintendent were able to speak about this. I don't even know if it was today's Monday, so it must have been last week. I appreciate having both of these MOUs. One is originated with the district attorney. One is originating with the other one, the attorney general. And our current agreement is modeled, is the one with the district attorney. I appreciate Sarah Phillips for bringing this up. It is something that we need to learn more about. It's not something, since we've spoken, I guess it was only Friday, I have been struggling some with this. It needs to be high on the agenda in the fall. The agreement isn't between the school committee and the police department. Is between, I believe it's, correct me if I'm wrong, superintendent, between the superintendent and the police department. So over the weekend, I was not able to come to a resolution whether it should go to rules or whether this is a discussion and education that we should be doing at the whole body. But I do think it is something we need to pick up in the fall and take this early on when we resume, when we come back. But there's plenty of learning that can be done over the summer. I don't want this to be one of those things. My hesitation about sending it to rules, I haven't shared this with Dr. Phillips, is I don't want it to get lost in an endless bureaucratic discussion, and yet it is something that we need to understand what the concerns are, what the differences between the two models, and who actually has the authority to make this decision. So, and I haven't come to a determination about where I want to put it, but I am fully committed to moving it forward on having it on the first agenda in, I think our first meeting is late in August. And I would entertain any discussion or comments. Is it Dr. Phillips and then Ms. Patone and then Ms. Ackman, Dr. Ackman?
So I just wanted to give you all a little background. This all came to the fore for me because we were getting lots of emails from our constituents about the role of police in schools, because students were coming to talk to me about role of police in our schools, because Just Us Somerville made it one of their demands at a recent rally. So I did some research just on what are we required to do by law. And for those of you who've been on the committee for a long time, this is probably old news to you. To me, it was new. So by law, we're required to have at least one school resource officer in our schools. The role of this officer is defined by a memorandum of understanding between the superintendent and the police department. And in my efforts to learn more about our particular MOU, I came across the model MOU developed by the Attorney General's office. Reading the two documents side by side, I can see they're very close. I think the Attorney General's MOU differs from the DA's MOU in two key respects. One is it places greater limits on data sharing, and the second, it restricts the activities or the acceptable activities of the school resource officer in some small but I think meaningful ways. To me, I really care about interrupting the school to prison pipeline, and these two changes seem small but important because we know that prior involvement in the judicial system leads or is associated with future involvement. So, I'm just 1/9 of this body, and I look forward to discussing these issues with you all in greater length, but I just wanted to tell you where this was coming from. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that framing. I think part of, in addition to understanding the memorandums of agreement and the two models, I think we also need more information about what does the resource officer do, how much time, what are the parameters, and also the STEPS program and the cadet program has been brought up, and I don't think as a body or as a community we may all fully understand what that actually looks like and what the time, the resources, how those decisions are made. And so I would ask that we get that information in the fall. Just as an aside, for those who do know the resource officer at the high school, Ozzy Martinez, who was very sick and is at home and is doing much better. And there's been a lot of concern in the community. And so I just want to take this moment apart from this issue to wish Ozzy well. Ms. Patone and then Dr. Ackman.
Thank you, Chair Norman. First, I want to thank Dr. Phillips for bringing this topic up and doing the research and even being as specific as telling us the differences between the two different examples that were shared. I am kind of echoing what Chair Norman has shared, which is I don't know if this belongs in rules, both from the standpoint of what's the scope of rules, as well as the fact that the agreement is something between the superintendent and the police department. But I do agree I want this to be discussed and addressed. So I would almost suggest that it would go back to the superintendent for her administration's review and reporting back to us to say why are they different and possible have a discussion at regular meeting. But I will defer it to you. But that was my first response, was like, I don't know if it belongs in rules, but maybe Emily has, I'm sorry, Dr. Ackman has a different perspective because she's the chair of rules. So I'm just going to take that offline. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Dr. Ackman?
I saw Mr. Green has a point of order. Is that relevant?
Oh. Mr. Green, would you like to jump in?
Sure. Just as a point of clarification for everyone, the fact that we have not created a policy instructing the superintendent on how to handle policing does not mean that we could not create a policy doing that. That is totally within our scope of power if we choose to behave that way.
Thank you for that clarification. Dr. Ackman?
So I have something else I want to bring up in new business later, but I just want to say I echo your sentiments as the chair of the Rules Committee, that if this is something we're going to deliberate on, I think it's important enough that we do it as a full body. Obviously, I yield to you as the chair, but that's where I stand.
Thank you. And I'm not trying to be evasive. I just, I want to approach it thoughtfully, and several people have offered me all kinds of resources to learn more about it, but also we need to be working with the superintendent to find out more about what actually is happening in the district, what are the concerns, what's working, what's not, what is the problem we're trying to fix specific to our district, and through that lens looking at the two different policies. So I am committed to bringing this up and putting it on the agenda when we resume our work. Is there anyone else who wants to discuss or comment on the memorandum of agreements between the superintendent and the police? So just for clarification, in the packet, both versions are included. Is there other new business, and then we'll move on to items from the board? Any other new? Dr. Ackman, you had a new item of business?
I did. I don't know if it's new, but I thought at this meeting, and it's my fault for not more thoroughly reviewing the agenda prior, is I would love to do a second reading of, we obviously can't do it now, but of file GBBA-R, which is gender identity for support for staff. We did it in person in our last meeting before everything got shut down, and there are many rules and policies that are up in the air, I understand, because of coronavirus, but this is one that I think is not going to be affected by, potentially anything with coronavirus. And so if we, can't do second reading tonight, I'd like to see it go through as quickly as possible.
Thank you. So we have a couple of little points here. In the last 3 months, our agenda that was laid out for the whole rest of the school year was obviously interrupted. I would ask all of my colleagues, I have a running list, but if there are other things or anything that you want to tweak my memory on, because I would like to the best of our ability, when we come back in August, I like to have things planned out for the rest of the school year, knowing that things can change rapidly. So please send that off to me over the summer. So there's a question, do we need to table the motion? Yes. Mr. Green, can you give us some parliamentary guidance here on what we should do at this moment in time? And there was a motion, a second. And
so
then
this is in regards to, I'm sorry, it's 9:30. I've kind of lost the thread.
Yep.
In regard
Yep.
to the
The motion,
TBA,
Dr. Phillips's motion to have it go to rules.
I think it's technically out of order. I don't think it needs to. So where things go, as far as how things are liberated, is up to the chair to decide.
So
and that's
say that.
That's a vote.
Okay. And Ms. Santiago, did you get that for the minutes? And is there any objection to calling it out of order? And there's someone's kid.
I got it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Phillips, I just want to check in with you as the maker of the motion. Are you comfortable with that to proceed?
I can live with it. I can also amend the motion just to give you greater flexibility to put it where you see fit. It's up to you guys.
Well, I think Mr. Green's point is that it's actually at the discretion of the chair where that goes. So I'm going to call it out of order, and thank you for raising this important issue. Are there either other items of new business? Dr. Ackerman, I got yours. I haven't marked down. Okay. Items from board members?
I'm sorry, I'm back on new business. I apologize.
Okay.
I know you're managing a lot right now, so I just want to pop in. I had a couple things that came up that I'd just like to bring up. One, I just want to comment briefly on people who are members of the community may not realize that we have subcommittees, and I just want to acknowledge that the Educational Program Subcommittee, once the school closure, the physical building closures happened, we made decisions each month to not have an educational programs meeting. We had a very positive agenda that we put forward, but a lot of the things that were on the agenda weren't as pressing as the needs due to COVID. So it's the intention. I'm going to collaborate with my counterpart in the administration, Assistant Superintendent Mr. Mazza, to reconvene in the fall. So I just wanted to make that comment. I also wanted, I had someone reach out to me, community member, about, I don't want to have a big conversation about this, I'm just going to say it briefly, about Juneteenth and making that part of the curriculum and required learning for all students in Somerville Public Schools. I did look at the civics curriculum. Because it's not an actual holiday, it's not listed in the civics curriculum, but the intention and of the civics curriculum is a lot about learning. A component of that is learning about all the population in our city and in our state, and anti-racism seems to be a component of that. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I know it may or may not something that we have purview as school committee. So I just wanted to share that. I also wanted to bring up a request to have something put on the agenda for the fall, which is the Student Advisory Council. So per Mass General Law, all school committees are required to have a Student Advisory Council, as well as that is voted on by the high school students, or we could possibly include middle school students. And I would really like, that's something that's come up in the past, and for many reasons we've kind of not put it in the front, and I really want to encourage us as a school committee to put that on the front burner in the fall. And that is up to you, Chair Norman.
Okay. I appreciate that you've raised it several times. The last time we were back when the building, hoping that in September we would be in the new building and starting the year afresh. So I just want to say back to everyone at the gender identity, the MOUs with the police, Juneteenth, and the Student Advisory Council. Are there any other items of new business or any items from the board at this point? I have one quick one, which is we have an executive session on Wednesday at 9 a.m. One member has contacted me and said she, with a work conflict, If you are unable to attend Wednesday at 9 a.m. for executive session, please let me know offline. Also, this is going to be an evolving summer, and if you have, as things come up for topics for the fall, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I do believe we will be more in contact this summer than any other summer with updates as things become more clear in this evolving story. I also just wanted to thank everyone, both tonight for a very long night, but for their patience and good humor. And by everyone, I don't mean just school committee members, I mean staff and educators, central office staff, school leaders, our custodians for cleaning the buildings after every time we had opened them up to get equipment or books or out, our food services, our family liaisons who have stepped up our partnership with our community partners and the city to try and meet the basic needs of our families in addition to continuing education. So with that and great gratitude, I now adjourn this meeting. Have a good summer. Be safe. Be healthy.